We're calling to order the Technical Advisory Committee for Sonoma County. We will start, as always, with introductions, and we will start.
Sonoma County Transportation Authority and Regional Center Protection Authority.
Edie Takata, City of Rohnert Park.
Laura Everham, Chad Winter.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks.
Joanne Parker, Smarts.
Greg Scott, City of Kentucky.
McLaughlin, Sonoma County.
Mayor Sonoma County Public Infrastructure.
Caroline Stead, City of Petaluma.
Serena Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
Rachel Reed, Santa Rosa City Bus.
Derek Montana, City of Florida.
Shauna Gaz, SCTA, RCPA.
Larry Zimmer, City of Fieldsburg.
First one, the SCTA, RCPA.
Jared Nichols, SCTA, RCPA.
All right, thank you. Oh, and online.
Oh, Ross Clendenin, SCTA, RCPA.
And Tanya Narath, SCTA, RCPA.
Am I seeing others online, Drew?
And then I will just call out, we have Mike Berger from the city of Sonoma, Charles Smith from Sonoma County Transit, Jennifer LaRoque from County of Sonoma, and then Adam Garcia from SCTA or RCPA.
Excellent, thank you. And so I'm not seeing any public. Our next item is public comment. And seeing none, approval of the meeting minutes from January 25th, 2024. Does anyone have additions, corrections? Seeing none, if no one objects, that will pass unanimously. Onward to item 4, Measure M and Go Sonoma. Discussion and action. 4.1, voicing obligation status.
So I apologize, Mr. Chair, there is no action, but this is invoicing and obligation status, which is brought to you every month. It's meant to provide you information on where you are with your appropriations and the need or not for invoicing on your open appropriations. There is one item that I've received an invoice since the publishing of this agenda packet, so City of Petaluma is no longer in the red.
Congratulations, Petaluma. It's always a good feeling. If there are no questions, onward to item 5, regional information update, 5.1, inactive federal obligation status.
So as we do every month, the federal inactive obligation status is included in your agenda packet. We don't try to go over these at the meeting anymore because it does take quite a bit of time. But there are a number of jurisdictions who are on the inactive obligations list, and we haven't had an update. Usually with the agreement, we don't go over it at the meeting anymore, with the agreement that I will get updates on what's going on with these on a monthly basis. So if you haven't already done so, if you would please provide me with a status of what's going on with your inactive obligations. And I will include that information in the notes column for next month. If they remain on, if they get taken off, then it's moot. But do also include, if the invoices have been sent in and are under consideration, please let me know when that invoice went so that we can help track what Caltrans's response time is, in addition to what's happening with. That's it.
Any comments from anyone? All right, welcome, Stephen. 5.2, TFCA call for projects for fiscal year 2025.
Is the chair, I'll be meeting. So this is the fiscal year 25 projects for TFCA. As usual, it's open to the transit operators who have their own set asides, plus the cities that are in the Bay Area Water Management District. So that's everything south of Phillipsburg, unfortunately. So there is about 627,000 total available. Of that, 139,000 or so is in the competitive pot. The rest of the transit operators and the transit operators don't use, we're going to that competitive pot. And as usual, it's eligible for pretty much any kind of bike infrastructure, vehicle replacements, transit vehicles, One addition this year was they could do buffered class 2 bike lanes instead of just a class 1, 2, or 3. So having that upgrade to a buffered class 2 is now eligible. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out anytime. Applications will be due to me on March 22nd, and then we'll be taking, as usual, the recommendations to this committee for approval on March 25th, and TAC on April 25th, and the transit TAC on April 10th, followed by the SCTA board in May. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
None. We are going at a record clip so far. Item number 6, this one won't be quite as fast. The SCTA funding program cycle 1 augmentation staff recommendations.
That'll be me again, Mr. Chair. So thank you everyone for being with us in January, February to talk about your updated regional priorities. As we discussed last month, that added up to over $600 million in requests, and we had quite a bit less than that in available funding. We had the 20 million in Regional Measure 3 North Bay Transit Access Improvement Funds, which are only eligible for the transit operators and the jurisdictions that operate transit. And then 9 million in Measure M funds that we had done in a swap last year with the State Transportation Improvement Program. In addition to that, we looked under the couch cushions and found a few other funding sources to help fill in the gaps in our funding plan. And the way we're bringing this as an augmentation to the SCTA funding program that we all went through over the last few years and the board adopted last February. In your packet, there's the table with some clouds in green showing what projects were funded in that cycle. And we added up to over 67 million projects. So now we're talking about adding a little bit over 30 million in additional projects or supplements to existing projects. There are 2 different options being proposed on the table right now. We're waiting to hear the results on Santa Rosa's Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant for the bicycle pedestrian overcrossing, and that is really kind of holding up having one straight recommendation. At this point, we have 2 on the table for you. One, which is the table 1 in your staff report, titled Scenario 1. That's assuming the grant is not awarded for Santa Rosa's project. The only difference between the 2 scenarios are for 2 different projects. In the first scenario, we're recommending 10.6 million for Santa Rosa's bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing, and then 2 million for Pelham Transit's transit facility modification phase 2 project, 1 million for Santa Rosa City Buses transit hub improvements, 3.6 million for Sonoma County Transit for bus replacements, and 2.8 million for Smart Windsor High School undercrossing project. The second scenario differs, and hopefully we have the happy news that Santa Rosa's funding gets awarded. In that case, that 10.6 million that was recommended for the overcrossing can move to other projects. The only difference in that scenario is 3.6 million will go to Santa Rosa City Bus for battery electric bus charging infrastructure, and 7 million to Smart for the pathway between the airport station and the Santa Rosa North Station in Corbett County in the city of Santa Rosa. That's the only difference between the 2 scenarios. For the Measure M funding, there's a variety of projects being recommended for partial funding of projects to get them ready to compete for other state or federal funds. That includes projects in Toddy, Woodsburg, Pelham, Roanoke Park, Sebastopol County. And also, we do have some additional recommendations for additional Measure M LSP funds that are available from the Measure M Local Streets Projects Reserve the board established last year after deprogramming funds for some inactive projects. That includes 1.6 million additional funds for the Adobe and Main Street intersection improvement projects in Pengrove to cover a scope and cost increase the county has in that project. And also a new recommendation to partially fund the county's airport boulevard widening project between Regional Parkway and Laughlin Road. This 4 million would build on the funding that was previously ordered for phase 1D of that corridor widening, which is the intersection improvements at Laughlin Road, and extend the widening a little bit to the east to be able to use the existing Go Sonoma funds that has match for this 4 million that's being proposed today, and only leave a small remaining segment to the airport that would not be 4 things. We're also recommending a small amount of federal earmark funds for Pelham's River Trail Highway 101 crossing project. Those are earmark funds from 15-20 years ago for the Highway 101 corridor. Those projects are now being closed out, and there's very limited projects that they're going to put on within the existing professional language. We want to avoid any kind of repurposing process that would potentially end up having those funds leave the county. So we're trying to stick with the existing statutory language and put them on projects like this one that could fulfill the requirements of the statute and receive the funds. So as additional savings come in, as the stars goes out, we may be putting more funds on that project. As I mentioned, we have these two scenarios that are kind of waiting to hear what happens with the Santa Rosa grant. Given that SMART has very time-sensitive constraints on their undercrossing project, where they have to execute a change order next month with their contractor. If we don't hear back within the next week or so on the Santa Rosa project, we're going to move forward to the board with the recommendation just to program the 2.8 million for SMART's project, and then come back to the board in the future with the last of recommendations pending hearing about Santa Rosa Spring. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have, but the staff recommendation is to move forward and recommend these scenarios to the board, depending on what happens with the Santa Rosa grant.
I guess I could say thanks for being flexible. This project is a huge deal for us and we are supposed to hear back this month. So there's a lot of anxiety in our department, just waiting for emails. Every time we get the notification, it's like. So anyway, thank you.
Is that a motion?
Is this a motion item?
Yes.
Sure, I'll motion to follow your recommendation.
Second it.
Thank you. We have a reluctant motion and second, and therefore, is anyone opposed? Sure, please.
The reconnecting communities neighborhood kind of funding, is that federal or state?
It's federal.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Kinda. We follow with it and we have headlines.
Yeah.
Has anyone else applied for that?
SMART had one for Novato area project, but we're lobbying for Santa Rosa's.
Clearly.
And I believe the county also applied for one on Highway 12 at Bell Street. Cities.
And that's all gonna come out at the same time? Just wondering how difficult the application and success is of that grant. Planning for the future.
Yeah, the application was very difficult, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Comparable to like a raise application.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty intense.
All right. With that, it's passing unanimously. No one's opposed. Done.
Thank you very much.
That was easier than I anticipated. Item 7, SCTA RCPA meeting, the upcoming board meeting, not on February 5th.
That one was, but the next one is on,
Yeah.
on March 11th.
March 11th, thank you. Anything to discuss on that?
The item that we just discussed, I believe, is gone, and, hopefully. Actually, I should let David address it, but I think. It's it'll depend on the outcome of the grant.
Yeah, at this point, we may, if we don't hear back, as I mentioned, just move forward the recommendation for the 2.8 million. I don't think there's any real other noteworthy items going to the board in March, just a legislative update on the regional transportation measure that NTC is discussing. I'm not sure how many of you have been following that, but those discussions are ongoing and a few different payment related items. Very light agenda for our March board.
All right, we're winding it down, people, and we're 15 minutes in, so,
I
round,
can say that the maintenance of effort reporting that you all just completed was supposed to go to you guys this month and then later on to the board, but it took a little bit to get it coordinated. We were getting info at the last minute, so we're gonna bring that to you next month and then it'll go to the board the following month.
Our item 8 is just roundtable discussion. Anything anyone wants to share? We typically talk about grants being pursued or bid environment, other businesses, announcements, big retirements. James, you got anything back there?
City streets and roads for all Norfolk just came out, right? New project is coming out.
And so as James noted, the notebook for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program was released yesterday. We're looking at a previous application to see what we can do to tweak it to compete better, but we'll be following up with all you. See your project ideas. One area we're looking at specifically is type project to do quick build or demonstration projects. There's no cap on those funds, and there's 600 million available. The implementation grants are much more competitive, so anything we can do that could be like a temporary striping and baller project. A little bit up to you how temporary you want it to be. Could be something we can look at along with other ideas. And so we'll be brainstorming on that, but that's another thing we're kind of waiting to see what happens with the reconnecting of this grant first before we do any major changes. But this time around, we're trying to get some consultants as well. So
When's that due?
there's a rolling due date, so the infrastructure projects, the implementation grants, I believe, are due May. I'd have to look at it again, but there's 3 different due dates for the demonstration for build projects, where we need to go rolling due date. It was very unsubscribed last cycle. And the other thing that's going on right now, and included in your packet, is a notice about the Caltrans State Climate Resilience Improvement Plan for Transportation, or SCRIPT. Those are acronyms. This is a study they're doing for the Federal Protect program. I believe the county applied for Protect funds in the last cycle, and Smart may have. And
With Caltrans.
and then also MTC did for Highway 37. But there's basically the study that Caltrans put out. They have kind of a call for projects for an unconstrained project list, and if you get your project on the list, your required local match can get reduced, I think, from 20% to 10%. And this is a program that's really looking at climate adaptation, evacuation routes, and kind of hardening infrastructure to deal with climate change and sea level rise. So I'm sure you're all dealing with storm damage for the last few weeks and have infrastructure that may be at risk, so it might be worth looking into this program.
What's the name again?
So it's in the packet. The Caltrans plan is called the SCRIPT, and it's Federal Protect program. Yeah. There's a competitive pot, there's a pot that goes to Caltrans for their projects, and a pot that goes to the California Transportation Commission, and they call that portion of the program their local transportation climate adaptation program. And right now, there's a guidelines process going on for the second round of the LT guidelines with CTC. So they should have that funding pretty soon.
Yes, please.
Raise grants are due on Wednesday. So Smart's partnering with the county and Cloverdale on an application. Thank you to SCTA for letter of support in City of Hillsborough. I have some questions for you before you leave. I was curious if you know of anybody else who's applying for that in the North Bay. I know Golden Gate is at the Santa Fe Transit Center. Anybody hear anything else? No? Okay. Somebody just asked me and I was like, no, gee.
This is your project.
It's actually the county's project. It's a rural planning request. It has 3 elements. One of which is, and all of them are full project delivery, getting all project delivery work done, planning and project delivery. City of Cloverdale's is a pedestrian active transportation study and public outreach process for creating pedestrian improvements around the highway underpasses and the smart station in the downtown area, and better connectivity to the county's new pedestrian bridge and whatever park activities are going on with the river. The county's is project delivery on the permanent bridge crossing of the Russian River at Asti. And Smart's is the project development for Cloverdale to Healdsburg, and all three of them have Sonoma County Transit or Smart or a combination or whomever bus or microtransit service improvement overlay. All three. And community outreach collaboratively on all three. So it's 13.5 million. It's called Connecting Cloverdale to the Bay. Yeah, right. Equitable transportation access and resilience project. Look for it when they announce the awards in June. Going to a catering meeting.
Anyone else?
Have we heard when they're gonna open the CARES grant? Does Chris know? Not yet?
So, yeah, there's a little bit of background behind that. So the governor's proposed budget has the REAP 2.0 money program. So that's a big piece of the CARES program. So they're kind of re-evaluating what that's going to be. So it's temporarily on hold. So hopefully we'll hear more. So that's where things are at. So nothing imminent, but we'll let you know as soon as we know more.
Great.
That's as much as I know.
As long as I'm not waiting on the email to
Yeah.
apply,
it's
that's fine.
Probably months out.
Okay, great.
I have a question. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, well, it's two items, kind of good news items. So the Maria Drive project, street reconstruction, recycled water, engineer's estimate 5.2 million, 4 bids, all under, and first and second bids were within 0.5%. There was a protest, there was a spelling error or a arithmetic error, and it was corrected and it dropped the cost and everything came together at the end of it. So that was very positive. And then the really positive thing is we got the preliminary PCI numbers for Petaluma. So it went from 42 to 54. Yes. It's
All right, I want to do an investigation. I don't know. We did, we had $20 million of Measure U. We did $4 million of slurry sealing. It's there. It's a heartbeat. Next year it's a 3-year running average, but it feels really good. It's just, as an engineer, it's this black cloud you just have hanging over you, so.
In the next 3 years, it'll become 100%. Tell me what you have for breakfast,
So-
guys.
Is that a lot of your residential or collectors? What did you slurry?
Primarily, we did do a couple of connectors. We did South McDowell, a little bit of the Boulevard, and a few connectors, but primarily local neighborhood. We were able to kind of save what we could save. So it's been it's an interesting process. And Jeff Stutzman's doing a really good job in the roads to just kind of keep this going on and give us a leg up. And, like I say, the PCI drops immediately. It just starts dropping. So the slurry seal, we got to be out there doing, all the slurry on the pavement reconstruction work we did on Sonoma Mountain Parkway and on the first part of Maria, and you just have to keep at it. So, but I will bask in the good news. It kind of doesn't come around often.
Did you guys stretch like the condition where you put down the seal coat? Like, sometimes you thought, hey, this may be a little bit too far gone to seal, and
We didn't do that. There are some ideas that we have to try to different ways of doing, instead of a full reconstruction, and maybe you don't get the full time period out of it, but there are some, no offense, some examples where maybe, a little bit of throwing, good money after bad, but I think there are, instead of trying to go for, the next 8 years, maybe, you can get 5 years or something out of it. So we are looking at that. And the The other thing is just we have too much pavement in Petaluma, so, can we find ways of, putting in, and this is just thinking outside the box, doing something different on the margins, on the edges of the roads, and can we put in trees and, if we put the bike lane in there, do we need to have the full structural thickness, for the bike lane if there's no buses or garbage trucks running in it, and trying to kind of reconfigure, how the road gets, gets repurposed. And so, Casa Grande is the one that we've got teed up, and we're looking at shrinking it. It doesn't need 4 lanes for, 6,000, 8,000 ADT. And so maybe you only need the structural thickness in the middle part of the road, and you can do something different on the edges. So we're trying to be innovative. Stay tuned.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Anyone here have Fair and Pierce doing their active transportation plan?
Doing
Well, none of us
the county,
Yeah.
so.
And-
that's by default,
How's that going well for everyone?
see at our workshop. But I think you all had workshop, I mean, I'm hearing that we were like one of the last ones to do.
Yeah, we have.
Haven't started them yet. Oh, okay.
Late next week is the first.
Oh, I thought we were late.
But so it's going well enough from what's happening.
Well, I didn't, I didn't, I wish we had something more prepared for our first workshop when they came. And we didn't see the players that we saw here, so, so who's the rest of the team? I guess, the VC, Aaron Ferguson, Principal, Taylor, we had, just people that we didn't see before, and we don't know how prepared they were, because when they came to, I don't know, if it's a CP pack conversation, but they didn't seem up to speed of what we had been talking about. And that was early, so that's why I say, next week we'll see, since we've had some back and forth on our comments and their project list, we'll see, hopefully get it better than what I thought we had first.
Right, every time they're working with you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Not necessarily completely happy at this point, but they're coming around. We've had some conversations and a little, not quite the switching of people, but just a lack of clarity on what we're getting and when, and the detail of the product we're receiving. So I was just curious if it was Healdsburg getting ignored, or if that was kind of what's happening, they just have too much work, or.
That's a big project when you think of all the
Yeah,
jurisdictions they're working with, and then working with the county, which is big geographic area, so. In the back of my head, I'm wondering. There's enough of their time allocated to get what they have said.
Yeah.
And we've got another staff level meeting next week. So I'll know more at that point, because they're gonna start presenting their recommended projects.
Yep.
So kind of on the fence.
yeah. So we got recommended projects, but they just weren't, that's kind of the detail I was looking at. It's just a list, says class 2, class 3B, things like that, but without the additional research to say, oh, that class 2 means you're taking parking out on both sides of the road. We need to know that. It needs to be labeled there, that type of thing. So it just wasn't fully baked, I guess. But so just curious. And on that topic, the 3B, the class 3 bike boulevard, do we know, is there any documentation that defines what that is? The bike, class 3 bike boulevard, as opposed to just a class 3 bike route? I know Santa Rosa put some in, and it just seems like more
Ours-
traffic calming and bigger legends and.
Ours are not, like they're labeled like.
Yeah.
They're not.
Every jurisdiction varies, but what different standards need to be set. You need to have these features to have.
I think most agencies don't have a standard
Right.
for what a bike boulevard is, and therefore, when we're seeing it on a project list. I don't know really what that means, so if this street or that street qualifies for a bike boulevard. And then if they do. When I'm trying to calculate construction costs or what's feasible, what isn't feasible. I'm not positive, because you don't have the Caltrans design manual that says this is a class 3B.
So I had definitely seen something before, so I just looked up NACDO does have a webpage that talks about various design elements, but it's not like a.
Yeah. I
You need
just
to
looked at
have
that.
A, B, and C, it's like dealer's choice, basically.
Yeah,
And then. Jurisdictions seem to. Pick and choose what they want to, and then say, oh, because I've picked a couple of things on this list, that means I now have a bike boulevard. But really, like, the safety enhancements are just not enough. So, and I wasn't here when they did the bike boulevards that we have, but there's no universe in which I would actually call it a bike boulevard, so. It's an interesting.
yeah, and I wonder too, from the defensibility standpoint. If we follow highway design manual, we're pretty covered. But now it's a little bit of a free for all. We're gonna do this for traffic calming. We're gonna put in these bigger legends, and if something happens. There's nothing to fall back on.
Yeah.
So, just curious. We'll all be going through the same thing.
Is there
Yes.
something in the chat there? I see a little red.
You should, hadn't thought the audio was off,
Oh,
so yeah.
okay, thanks.
Anything else?
Just one more thing to know in your packet, there was an announcement about a draft priority climate action plan that the state is doing through AirB. The Air District is doing their own as well, and these are plans to apply for the climate pollution reduction grant. So there are strategies in those two plans. And a number of activities that potentially we going after funding for. So we're looking at particularly partnering with the Air District or Bayren to go after some of these fundings, but it's something that maybe focused around mobility hubs and first last mile or net retrofit. There's a lot of things we go for, but we're still trying to figure out what that's going to be. We have Tanya online in case she wants to add any more, but happy to pass it off to her.
Yeah, thanks, David. So I can share just a little bit more information. So on the building electrification measure that's in the Air District's Priority Climate Action Plan, the Bay Area Regional Energy Network is taking the lead on submitting an application for funding to implement that building electrification measure. And so RCPA has been involved in those discussions. And then I think, as David said, for the mobility hub measure, we're not sure yet who's taking the lead on that for the Bay Area. And I wanted this item, or suggest this item, be in your agenda today because for the state level plan, there is an opportunity. There's a couple of measures in there under active transportation as well as electric vehicle infrastructure, charging infrastructure, that jurisdictions in Sonoma County could choose to submit an application tied to those measures in that state plan. You could do that as well for the Bay Area plan, but I think one of the keys to success in this grant program, as I understand it, it's very competitive. It's a nationwide pot of funds, and the stronger coalition you can put together to apply for the funds, the more competitive your application will be. So I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you want to talk offline more about this, happy to do that as well. I'll pass it back to you, David.
Thanks, Tanya. Anyone have questions? All right. If there is nothing else, we are adjourned, and I don't think we set a record, but damn close.
Question for. So, like